Chapter 13. The End of Elementary School. Did I peak in grade 8? We thought we were the shit. We were the kings of the fucking castle. We'd made it to the top of the elementary school food chain. We were almost at the finish line. All the other grades beneath us? Pfft, those were kids. We were literally too cool for school, and we couldn't wait to finish with that elementary once and for all. How on earth could we be so old, so mature, and be forced into assemblies with babies? It was so demeaning. It was insufferable. It was completely uncool. In the 5 years that I supervised school lunch and recess breaks, I saw it over and over again, and it simply makes me smile inside. Because despite all that immature ego flaunting from the senior students and the untethered exuberance of the younger grades, I just love all the kids so damn much, especially the teens. In fact, it's the teens, as I thought of them, because by and large they're teens at some point in grade 8 or they're soon to be. It's the teens who tug at my heart the most. They're messy, they're rude, they can be obnoxious to all and ruthless to one another. They love to swear and talk back just for the hell of it and flip the bird to authority. They want to do sneaky shit often, and they want to do something bad every time an adult leaves the room. They don't realize that I knew when they were hiding out in the washroom and other unchecked corners of the school. I've seen the disdain and lack of patience many teachers have for them at this point, preferring their sunnier, often more compliant younger peers. It only makes me love these misfits even more. I remember what it's like to feel like an alien in your own body. I remember what it's like to suddenly feel moody and cynical for seemingly no reason. Some new kind of sentience that makes you realize there's a whole lot more to the world than playgrounds and a soapy container with a bubble wand, and it ain't all good. Carefree turns to a constant fear of and vigilance against embarrassment. Your nice clear skin gets covered with zits. Your armpits and feet reek. Your hair gets greasy fast. Was there a competition about which fellow students were obviously the best looking in class? Because why does it feel like suddenly you lost? When did the adults turn into the enemy? You start to stick by your teen friends like glue because they're going through it along with you. When you go to the drugstore, the cashiers don't think you're adorable anymore. They watch you like a hawk with narrow, disapproving eyes. They don't trust you. In fact, there's a sign right on the door that says only a few of you at a time can even go in to shop together. You're a thief. Well, you're not, so that is completely unfair to be treated that way, even if you have heard about other teens you know who've stolen stuff for kicks. Grade 8 seemed like it was going to be exciting. We all finally got Mr. M as our homeroom teacher. We'd been looking forward to that for the past couple of years, watching him chum around with our senior predecessors. We had him for a subject or two, and he seemed so fun and funny and cool. At the end of grade 7, there were happy mutterings of, "Yeah, Mr. M next year! Finally, we'd made it!" By grade 8, we were sullen and pretty sick of school. Our class was fairly divided by then. There was my group of friends, the slightly nerdier girls and guys, and the other group of kids who talked a little tougher and called us the get-along gang. Funny. We seemed such a tight group of friends, but we for the most part eventually drifted apart. From what I've seen in social media, the other group stuck together through everything. It was nice to see. It's a shame our group never stayed as rock solid. I had several girlfriends who I was close with, but Julie was definitely my best friend. I felt the most comfortable with her, and we just seemed to get along really well. She lived on a little street not too far from my grandma's. I'd either ride my bike over to her house, or she'd ride her bike to my house, and we'd just hang out. I can't even imagine what we yapped about for all those hours, probably stuff like how much we loved Duran Duran, how much I loved Simon Le Bon, how much Julie loved John Taylor, all the other 80s bands we loved, how unbelievably gorgeous Jake from 16 Candles was, the life-changing influence of the Breakfast Club, which boy was currently the cutest, who we had a crush on, who had a crush on who was the snottiest in class, which one of our friends was currently the most difficult to get along with, all that stuff. We watched 16 Candles so many times, rewinding the scene where Anthony Michael Hall's character is found trapped in a glass coffee table and hilariously screeches for Jake. We'd go to the movies together. Sometimes Julie would even invite me to go swimming in her in-ground pool. Total joy! We played tennis together at the park down the street from her house. And sometimes we just went to that park and climbed the pine trees. We'd sit up there in the branches, getting pine sap on our hands, arms, and legs, talk about everything, and snicker quietly as people would pass by below, unaware that we were up there in the branches. We pierced our ears together twice. We did it at Julie's house because she had rubbing alcohol. Seriously, we never had that at my house. We had an ancient-looking bottle of iodine just in case any serious wounds ever occurred, but that was about it. Mom was a pretty firm believer in soap and water. She didn't even support Band-Aids, even though every kid feels incomplete if they don't get to put a Band-Aid on their boo-boo. Mom would always shoot that down. It's better to let your skin breathe. What a disappointment that was. Incidentally, Mom used that iodine on a cut I had once. I had been at the annual carnival, and while walking without looking where I was going, I ran into the top of a metal spike that was hammered into the ground holding part of a tent in place and sliced my knee. Mom used the iodine in that case, and the pain was white fire. I kind of feared iodine from that moment forward, and I still kind of feel like iodine hurts worse than other antiseptic liquids. But yeah, Julie had rubbing alcohol at her house, so obviously she was the best equipped for more hygienic ear piercing. This, of course, happened while her parents were out. We did this with a wiped and clean safety pin and an ice cube. Success! It seemed quite cool and exciting. Julie even sent me home with an old prescription bottle filled with my own supply of rubbing alcohol so as to be able to keep that new piercing clean. Probably even gave me some cotton balls, which was another thing we rarely had. Mom thought cotton balls were stupid and a waste of money, and you could just use toilet paper for most anything cotton balls were used for anyway. So, I'd head off with my cleaning supplies, and then I'd be home with my shiny new piercing. I'd try to hide it under my hair as best as possible, but I didn't have the long hair I used to. In grade 7, I'd cut my long, Little House on the Prairie locks in favor of a more stylish, short, layered, feathered look. I just tried to not draw any attention to myself at home. Despite my efforts, Dad would always notice almost immediately. "Is that another ear piercing?" Then he'd rant for a moment about me putting another unnecessary hole in my ear. Mom wasn't particularly impressed either. I was a very good kid and really didn't get up to too much, but that was the kind of shit you do when you're young, you don't have a car, you're bored, it's the weekend, and your parents are out. It was so boring when Julie would go away to summer camp, but it was cool to get letters from her. We just seemed to get along so effortlessly. My friend group and I hung out quite a bit too, both guys and girls. Things had subtly changed with puberty. Conversations and jokes had become raunchier, more filled with sexual tension. Birthday parties had become clandestine sessions of our favorite new game that year, Truth, Dare, Double Dare, Promise to Repeat. If you don't know this dumb game, it involved choosing one of the above categories and having to fulfill the request out of teen honor and peer pressure. Stupid shit like, "I dare you to go in the other room, take your bra off, come back, and wave your bra around so we can all see it," for the dare or double dare portion. Answer if you've ever kissed anyone for the truth portion. Or maybe say yes or no to whether or not you had a crush on anyone in this room. And then for Promise to Repeat, you had to do some stupid repeat after me type shit and echo back some ridiculous, embarrassing phrase. Such titillating fun. There wasn't much physical stuff going on. Our group was pretty shy for that. I had a friend I still kept in touch with from time to time who'd moved a small ways away and went to a different elementary school. She told me casually how they'd all dated each other by that point pretty much, who'd broken up with who, which of them they'd French kissed, etc., etc. On the outside, I acted like I was completely casual with all that. Totally relatable. On the inside, it completely freaked me out. The thought of French kissing anyone at that age sounded absolutely horrifying, especially if it was one of my guy buds. Our group hadn't really dated. In fact, and I am not bragging, believe me, I think I was the first one out of our group to go on a date with another person from our group. Prior to this, one of my closest guy friends threw me for a loop one day when he snuck a note to my desk. When I unfolded it, there was a question. Would I go out for dinner with him at a local restaurant one night? Then there were 3 boxes underneath. Yes, no, maybe. And I was supposed to check one. I was horrified. I'd been friends with that guy since kindergarten, and he felt like a second brother. I checked the no box and returned it, sweating bullets on the inside. After school, as we walked home together, he was not happy and he confronted me. Did I say no because I couldn't go, or because I didn't want to? Cringing, I said, a bit of both? It was sort of true. I hoped it made it sound nicer. I couldn't go because I didn't want to. Ugh, it felt terrible even being in that situation. Sometime after that, another of the guys asked me to go to the movies. I think that was grade 7. Brian and I had been increasingly flirty with one another. It was way overwhelming, but I wanted to go. Kinda. His mom was going to drive us and chaperone. It was extremely nerve-wracking. My mom was pissed off. She did not approve. She stated plainly that I was too young for dating and it was not appropriate. But she let me go anyway. It was a fairly fucking uncomfortable experience, that whole thing. Brian's mom agreed to sit a few seats away from us so as not to cramp our style, and I barely remember the movie because I think I spent a lot of it fretting over whether or not we were supposed to be holding hands or anything. The next day at school was total buzz within our group. The girls wanted to know all the details, and the guys were relentless with the ribbing and the joke-making. Were we supposed to be a couple? Were we boyfriend and girlfriend now? Oh my God! I nearly emotionally collapsed under the pressure. I backed the hell out of that one and decided it was fine, just fine, to go right back to being a kid again. A kid who did not go on dates. It was grade 8 that I started dating Bobby. It was at a park close to my house one day when I was hanging out with neighborhood friends that Bobby showed up with some of his friends. I was quietly thrilled. He'd been there from time to time before. He went to high school, and I thought he was very cute. He was very flirty with most of the girls at the park whenever he was there. There came a point, though, when Bobby decided it was time to get down to business. It was me and 3 other girls there. Bobby liked one of the sisters I hung out with in particular. He asked her if she'd go out with him. She laughed at him and said, "No." He asked the next girl. She sneered and declined as well. He asked the next girl, no way." He turned his attention to me, nodded at me and said, "How about you?" Me, inwardly melting with delight, "Okay." And that was how Bobby became my boyfriend for the next 2 weeks. It was exciting, utterly horrifying, and pretty frigging awkward, to be honest. See, it was cool for me because Bobby was in grade 10. Very cool for a girl to have a high school boyfriend. But at the same time, it was fairly uncool for Bobby because he now had a girlfriend who was still in elementary school. It was also super weird to just launch into a state of boyfriend-girlfriendness, like we were right away holding hands. And then Bobby was waiting for me outside of my school, and then we were supposed to hang out apparently. Holding hands was about the extent of what I was ready for. After Bobby walked me home from the park one night, things got super uncomfortable as he stared at me with that crazy look guys get when they figure they might kiss you. But I was not ready for that, let me tell you. So I pointed to my cheek as if to say, "On the cheek, mister. Thank you very much." One time I was over at his house with friends in his finished basement, and we were all watching movies. VHS fun with the lights off. He turned to me in the dark and said, "Let's make out." Mortified, and actually pretty pissed off and offended, I expressed my disapproval with a firm and disgusted no. Poor Bobby immediately played it off that he was just joking. I was terrified of really kissing a boy. All that choreographed mouth intimacy? Good Lord, fetch me my smelling salts. If only my parents truly knew how into being good I was at my young age, they would have relaxed a lot more, I'm thinking. As it was completely awkward and uncomfortable in the few times Bobby came over to my house. Generally speaking, it was awkward to have anyone over to our house when Mom was home. She did not particularly enjoy any of us kids having anyone over. She'd become really grouchy and thoroughly unpleasant. If I came and asked her if my friend could have a drink, she'd be irritated. If I didn't ask if my friend wanted a drink, she'd be irritated. Aren't you going to ask your friend if they want a drink? It was a no-win situation. Dad, being a dad who was very protective of his daughters, wasn't exactly super great with any potential boyfriends coming over. He'd get louder, ask some stupid questions, and make very embarrassing jokes. The air would reek of passive aggressiveness on the parts of both of my parents. So yeah, there was that cringy first time Bobby came over. My mom was the equivalent of a hissing cat in the kitchen. I thought it would be polite to give Bobby the smallest tour and show him my room. I could feel Mom's disapproval ramp up a notch. No need to worry. There wasn't a snowball's chance in hell that I'd be heading upstairs for any heavy petting or furtive French kissing. Screw that. Bobby enthusiastically tried to jog up our stairs. He super wiped out. Fun fact, nearly everyone tripped on our stairs. Our stairs were not built like everyone else's stairs, apparently. They were steeper, and the first few steps had an especially high rise. They were just the right amount of taller that you couldn't necessarily see it at a glance, but it would totally mess with your pre-programming about stairs. We, of course, were used to it. Everybody tripped on our stairs. It was embarrassing and comical. It was kind of like an initiation into our house. So, Bobby fumbled out onto his knees on those first 3 steps. It was so embarrassing because when you're a teen, everything is embarrassing. He was a bit embarrassed. I was embarrassed for him, and I was embarrassed that my new boyfriend looked like such a klutzy oaf. Another thing was that poor Bobby carried a brush around in his back pocket. I mean, on the whole, grooming is cool. One year at school during book sale fundraiser time, if we sold enough books, we got a free brushette. The brushette was fucking awesome. It was a skinny little brush with 2 lines of bristles and a space in the middle for its slim comb on hinges to fold into. A comb and a brush all in one. I actually sold books just to get that damn brushette. Dad, for years, carried a slim, discreet black comb around in his back pocket. To me, that was very manly. Every now and again, he'd whip that comb out and give his hair a quick once-over. There was something very cute and endearing and just daddy-ish about his little black comb. I think a lot of guys in Dad's generation carried combs in their back pockets, but Bobby had a damn full-sized brush, one of those with the oval brush heads. And it sucks that it even mattered, but it's a sad fact of life that if that person you're dating or considering dating isn't the one, it's the littlest things that can kind of gross you out. If you actually are serious about that person, you can overlook a ton of stupid things. I mean, Mom told us that there was a guy who asked her out when she was a teen, and on their first date, he conversationally told her that he had had beans and wieners for dinner, and she lost all interest. It's a hard, cold world out there. At some point during that excruciating visit, Mom testily asked if Bobby would like a piece of the cake she'd made. He enthusiastically accepted, and I don't remember eating any cake along with him while he happily wolfed it down. I was mentally going downhill in this boyfriend business. It wouldn't be long before my 2-week boyfriend anxiety timer would soon be going off. I think 2 weeks was about as long as my flirtation with my friend Brian had lasted before I freaked. It was all too intimate, and Mom was so unimpressed, and I was terrified and wildly uncomfortable to do anything more than hold hands and let Bobby kiss me on the cheek, and Bobby wanted to try a whole lot more. So I tried to hang out with him and his friend all the time. Joe was a really nice kid, But he wore this plaid flannel jacket all the time that reeked like fish. And I mean reeked. Like, within a foot of this kid, this jacket would hit your nose and you'd be like, yeah, that's fish. And he never took it off. Why did that coat smell that strongly of fish? I think I remember he said he liked to go fishing, but is it possible for it to make your coat totally reek of fish? I mean, I have never fished, so I honestly don't know. Anywho, Joe was a nice kid, and I really am not trying to be mean, but a gazillion years later, and any time any thought of this kid pops into my head, it always comes with the memory of how that plaid jacket was total fish. It's my gift and curse, so let me tell you a little about that. My gift and curse. Okay, so I have a tiny memory about just about anyone I've come into contact with over the years. I can't help that my brain has a whole keepsake collector box of really stupid details. The kid in elementary who would seem to go into a trance as they furiously picked their nose and ate it. The kid who peed their pants fairly regularly when they were too old technically to be peeing their pants. The kid whose armpits reeked the most when we just started to hit puberty. The kid who the guys called Super Balls because the jeans he wore all the time were faded in an unfortunate area. The kid who wore a shirt that said "Party Till You Puke" on it on school picture day and was forced to turn their shirt around backwards for the classroom shot. The kid who flipped out and whacked the smug goody two-shoes on the head with the chalk brush after that kid got chosen to clean the blackboards and smirked. The poor kid who cried on the first day of school because the protractor was missing from their geometry set, at an age when crying was considered super uncool, apparently. The girl who the boys ran around at recess trying to get little pats on her giant breasts just to piss her off. The girl who got her period during class in school while wearing white jeans, sending out a ripple of horror across the female student body. The super nincompoop smell of that short, angry lady substitute teacher's breath. The gross things that were often in one of the teacher's beards. The educator who would lose his shit often and turn as red as a stop sign as he filled with rage. The teacher who got typewriter ink on her hands, grimaced and wiped them off on the old-fashioned bow tassels of her blouse. Such crazy things that can get stuck in the brain. So yeah, the 2-week timer went off. I broke up with Bobby. I probably said that insufferable thing about just wanting to be friends that I thought sounded so much nicer than just saying, I don't want to go out with you anymore. I can only imagine how people, and perhaps especially guys, must hate that sentence. It's such a bullshit line. You don't actually even want to be friends most of the time, but you think it sounds so much easier to swallow. He was a nice kid, and cute too, but boyfriends, to me, were just too much when I was young. Bobby was bummed and lamented that he'd been dumped to his friend Joe, who then stopped by my house not long thereafter to relay this information to me. After the Bobby friend zoning, Joe started showing up solo to my house all the time. He seemed to suddenly always be coming over to see if I wanted to hang out, and he didn't really want to leave. He'd hang out for hours. He didn't seem to want to go anywhere, and we didn't even really have much to talk about. It was incredibly awkward. There was one super mortifying time when I said I had to have dinner, and he said, "That's fine," he'd wait, and he did not leave. You don't even know. That was not done in our house. We were taught that dinner was important, if not sacred. And if it was time for our friends to have dinner, you got the hell out of there. In fact, you didn't just leave right when it was time for them to eat. You left before you were even told. If our parents were picking us up, it was built into the pickup time that they'd be getting us decently in advance of their dinner time. And if our friends were coming over, it was set out beforehand how long they could stay. But Joe was determined and unbothered. Mom was forced to ask if he wanted to stay for dinner. No thanks. He would wait. He plunked himself down on the couch in our TV room and watched TV while my brother, parents, and I sat quietly, uncomfortably, eyeballing one another. Mom and brother were especially appalled. I don't know how 7-year-old sister felt about it, eating in the TV room as she always did. Maybe she didn't really care as she happily rewatched that stupid scene from Ghostbusters on her VHS tape of favorites with Joe in there to hang out with. Joe became so relentless that I actually started begging my family to tell him I wasn't home. I mean, he just endlessly hung out. for ages and wouldn't really even want to chat about anything anymore or do anything. I'm pretty sure he super wanted to ask me out. He kind of hinted at stuff. In the end, the poor dude gave up and stopped coming around. Good grief. Imagine how much better the world would be if we all had the super balls to just be totally upfront about things. Anyway, I was perfectly happy to go back to my friends. My friends were so important to me at that time. I feel truly sad these days when I see teens at home all the time on their phones, their tablets, their computers. They should be congregating at parks and playgrounds in sneaky, tight-knit groups, talking shit and banding together against this cruel old world. Feeling a bit sentimental today. By grade 8, nearly every inch of the walls in my corner of the bedroom were covered with Duran Duran posters. Somehow neither of my parents seemed to have a problem with this. I even tried to tack a poster up to the ceiling, a big one too. The goal was to have my little nook thoroughly covered with Duran Duran. I discovered there is no amount of tape that will keep a great big poster up on the ceiling. I tried so many times, and just when I'd think I'd finagled the cleverest placement of tape, I'd be in my room or somewhere upstairs and I'd hear that disheartening flap of the tape giving up, and my poster would hit the floor. Again. I got a very early copy of their first record from Mom's youngest sister. It was very exciting. Them all decked out in their pirate-esque Planet Earth, new wave fashion. I slowly acquired more of their records, and even a couple of singles records with rare B-sides, and a thrilling picture disc. Brother, who was often in my biz, was disgusted that I actually played my picture disc on the record player. He told me, "You're not supposed to actually play them. They won't be collector's items if you play them, and they won't be worth any money." Pfft, as if Teen Karen could ever conceive of ever selling them. I forked out $10 on a Duran coffee table book filled with glossy photos of the band. Mom was pissed. $10 was a lot of money at the time. It was a pretty bold move on my part because I figured Mom wouldn't be too pleased, but my zealous fan love overruled parental disapproval, so I forked out that precious allowance money anyway. My girlfriends, who were also super Duran fangirls, loved my book as well. And when we'd hang out, I'd bring the book over with me so we could pore over the photos and scrutinize every detail. We were all practically in competition over who could get their hands on more Duran Duran stuff. Whoever got a Duran shirt or harder to find or rare record stirred up much jealousy in our group. At birthday parties, a couple of the girls were able to con their oblivious dads into renting that one Duran Duran tape that had all their music videos at that time. Oh my God! The absolute thrill. Only an adult could rent that movie, so you would think these parents might have cared more about the age requirement warnings, but there you go. Thanks, 80s. There were at least 2 videos with nudity, and one of them was appreciably dirty. We screeched and eewed together with shock, disgust, and delight as topless girls in skimpy bottoms romped around. In another video, we all watched silently swooning as Simon slow danced cheek to cheek with that lucky, incredibly lucky woman. I was utterly in love with Simon Le Bon. I was a teen, and he was 27, and to me, completely gorgeous. That age gap was pure tragedy. I mentally begged him to wait for me to get older, and then obviously we'd meet and fall in love forever. But then one day he started dating a beautiful supermodel. Oh no! And then he married her. Oh my God, the sorrow! And broke my teen heart. It was that year on the radio that there were commercials advertising a Duran concert tour. They were coming to Toronto. Information was given about locations to buy tickets. I nearly fainted with desire to go, but there was a problem. To reserve tickets, you needed to have a credit card. My parents didn't have a credit card. It was a no-go. I was crushed. We did have other bands we loved as well. Duran was the favorite, of course. And luckily, we were able to go see one of them in concert. Platinum Blonde. Toronto was well over an hour away, and 2 parents agreed to split the group of us who were going and shuttle us to the big city. It was very exciting. Waiting for the concert to start was exciting in itself. A couple of rows down from us, there was this guy, clearly not from our hick town. His hair was bleached white blonde and spiked out like the band's signature style. He wore a white leather jacket that was covered in snaps and buckles and bunched up at the elbows. He had on fingerless gloves, shiny pink leather pants, and white moon boots, and we girls thought he was fucking wicked. Someone nearby called out, "Hey, Tony!" And this amazing creature waved back. Tony! We had a name! We reminisced with ooey-gooey sighs about Tony for ages after that. I don't remember too much more about that concert other than when the lights went out and our band came on stage. I, along with my friends, shrieked until I nearly lost my voice, almost cried a few times because it was just so exhilarating, and swore at one point the guys in the band saw me. Never mind that our seats were far enough away from the stage that they most certainly did not see me. I was convinced that my beauty just beamed itself out across all of Maple Leaf Gardens and straight into the eyes of the band. My first concert. It was wildly exciting, even if it wasn't Duran Duran. I turned 13 at the end of grade 7. I thought that the moment I became a teenager, I would feel somehow different. I thought there would be some sort of a magical quality about being 13. There wasn't a great deal of difference from being 12, to be honest. I didn't get Barbie dolls for Christmas anymore. I was starting to like makeup and clothes and things to style my hair. That was the year I started being more concerned with my appearance. Well, maybe there was a difference. That was the year I started dieting. I lost 10 pounds within a few weeks by cutting out desserts after dinner and doing jumping jacks after every meal. There was a bit of wall left without Duran Duran posters over my bed, so I taped up a motivational sign I'd made reminding me to do 30 curl-ups every night before sleeping. I started to feel compelled to just exercise more and went on horrendously dull bike rides around the neighborhood. I'd ride out to the end of my street, turn right past the park, go all the way down to the end of that street, right again past the pollution plant as we knew it. That was where they treated the water and where my parents joked all the poops went. It certainly always smells that way when you pass by it. So, turn right with the ugly pollution plant on my left and a long stretch of industrial yards on my right, big trucks roaring past, hoping not to get creamed by one of them, then turn right again, go past the butt-ugly, super sketchy motel, past the now-gone Polish Hall, past Grandpa's factory, and eventually back to my street. Truth be told, I'd started wearing makeup to school in grade 6. Even though Mom was a strong proponent of makeup and the powers of makeup, she wasn't too keen on me wearing makeup to school that year, but I actually lied and told her all my friends were wearing makeup. Total bullshit and pretty unlike me. None of my friends were wearing makeup. Some pretty horrid combinations emerged in those early days. I would sneaky borrow some stuff from Mom's makeup bag when she wasn't around. In grade 8, for a small while, there were little outings just for the senior students called drop-ins. They were in the evenings and chaperoned by a few of the teachers. They were kiboshed almost immediately, but there was that one awesome trip. We went on an evening trip to a big roller skating rink in Welland. We had a roller rink in town, and not too far from where I lived, but it was way smaller and less impressive. This other place was amazing. Great big floor to skate around, loud, awesome music, light effects, frigging wicked. I really wanted to doll myself up that night, so that was when I pinched an old, hideous, orangey-brown lipstick out of Mom's makeup bag and matched it with orangey-brown eyeshadow. It was a thrilling outing, with just the cool senior students and none of the younger school babies. My friend Ty wore the designer jeans he'd acquired recently. Since very few people gave a shit about clothes and labels per se, this was noteworthy, and our other guy friends were fairly relentless. One of our mischievous friends, Brian, skated over to the DJ booth to request a song dedication. "This next song goes out to Karen and Serge!" A slow song for couples who wanted to hold hands followed. The guys thought this was hilarious. They'd been ribbing Ty about his Sergio Valente jeans and had nicknamed him Serge simply for owning them. Of course, the song dedication was wildly embarrassing. That was about it for senior drop-ins after that. The teachers must have realized that being at school all day and then having to hang out during their evening time with us was basically bullshit. Toward the end of the year, we had our big grade 8 school trip, Ottawa. We would all be staying in dorm rooms at one of the local universities. We were all super excited. Mom hated it. She was nervous about me being so far away. It was a nearly 7-hour drive. I guess it didn't help that I was still getting over bronchitis on that trip. I had to bring some prescription medicine with me, and one of the teachers was in charge of remembering to give it to me. That was the second time I'd had bronchitis. The first time was in grade 1. I can remember feeling like total garbage that second time, and Mom taking me to the doctor. As I sat waiting on the paper-covered examining table, I was shivering away and feeling like total crap. As the doc checked me over, I was mortified to discover when I stood up that I'd sweated an unmistakable bum cheeks print onto the paper I'd been sitting on. I had a terrible cough, and it lasted a long time. I felt better by the time our trip was coming up, but still had medication to take. Mom fretted about a lot of things, and she wasn't looking forward to my trip. I sure was. It felt like the closest thing to independence yet. Admittedly, it was dull at times. Tons and tons of walking, which teens kind of hate, and trips to some fairly dry places. Staying at the university was super exciting, though. I was rooming with one of my girlfriends, and we had an adjoining room with 2 of our other friends. We had a great time acting like idiots, running back and forth between rooms, horsing around, before it was lights out for bedtime. It was really fun. It was fun staying in that university, and it was fun eating in their cafeteria surrounded by all these mature students. No doubt my friends and I were desperately scanning everywhere we went for cute boys. Grade 8 was the year I started coloring my hair. Mom was into all that hair stuff. She got perms in the late 70s and 80s as well. Mom, with the help of my aunt, or sometimes a reluctant me, would do the home highlighting thing. This is where you had to wear the skull-squeezing plastic bonnet with all the little holes punched into it. All you had to do was get your little torture hair crochet-looking hook and choose which and how many holes you wanted to poke the hook into and grab, and then just rip up a strip of hair to color. Come to think of it, just thinking of a woman sitting with that plastic cap on with strips of hair fountaining out over top suddenly reminded me of my Play-Doh fuzzy pumper hair salon, a most awesome present I got in the 70s. You attach the little plastic dude over the plastic barber's chair filled with Play-Doh and push the handle down to squeeze Play-Doh up and out of the holes in the dude's head, giving him or her instant Play-Doh hair. You could leave the hair long or cut it with the little dull scissors. It was great. So one time when Mom was getting ready to get some highlights, she suggested that I might like to get some too. Just a few highlights. Wouldn't that just look so cute? Yeah, maybe it would. I got a few blonde highlights and that was it for me. I was hooked. So I was feeling pretty decent by the end of grade 8. I'd lost 10 pounds from my weight loss regimen, and I actually felt slim-ish. I had some cute blonde highlights. I had really good, fun, nice friends, and we all hung out a lot. School was easy. I barely had to try back then, and I still got good grades. I'm serious. I didn't put a great deal of effort into my work for years and still somehow did well. I loved being in the choir and ensemble, and I was on the volleyball team. I was never amazing in sports, and I sucked hard at gymnastics. And let's not even revisit baseball. But I was pretty decent in volleyball and had a great underhand serve. Elementary school, aside from some jerky, awkward, or embarrassing moments, was a good time in my life. Everything just kind of flowed, and grade 8 grad would really reflect my overall happiness as a kid and a young teen. I was chosen to be valedictorian for that year's ceremony. I was excited and a bit nervous. For some reason, even though I was often grossly lacking in self-confidence, I did okay with public speaking in school. We used to have to do speeches in front of the class when we got in the older grades, and I actually came in second place in the final competition a couple of times. I've never really minded public speaking, so I just had to focus on writing a decent valedictory speech. I also had to go out and find a dress. There was an old-fashioned multi-story department store downtown that no longer exists. I found a mint green, simple, soft, cotton wrap dress. I was really excited to wear it. Graduation would be held at the church right across the street from our school. That was also the handy location where angry boys would agree to meet after school to fight over the years. I saw a few fights there, and I always found them horrifying. After grad, there would be a dinner dance back at the school gym. And there we were, our class of senior students, all dressed up. Some of the girls had gone to actual hairdressers. The guys were in suits. We all got flowers to pin to our outfits. I wore my dress with a very 80s pinky peach fake pearl necklace and pumps of a similar color. Mom was hard-pressed to spend the money on those shoes, let me tell you, but I assured her I'd almost certainly get a ton of wear out of them in high school. Oh yeah, I totally pictured I'd be wearing them casually, with jeans, or almost any outfit. I never wore them to high school. I made it through my speech, nervous but appearing calm. I thought it was good, and I was proud of what I'd written. I figured I'd be able to just watch the rest of the ceremony after that, but to my total shock and surprise, I got the most awards of anyone else there. I won the Grade 8 French Award, Citizenship, the School Board Achievement Award, and the School Board Education Award of Excellence. This last award was newly created that year, and I was the first person at our school to have won it. I was stunned. My friends were stunned. Dad, however, sitting in the audience with the other parents and family members, had the program in his hand, which they'd all been handed before the ceremony, and he was absolutely, positively lit up like a firework, doing mental cartwheels of excitement. Because that was my dad. No one in the whole world has ever been so fervently, excitedly, vocally, demonstratively proud of me. I mean, I'm sure Mom was always proud of me too, but it was always Dad who was unabashedly thrilled and proud of me. Dad, who always tried so hard to boost my lousy confidence, was sitting there with that program in his hands, trying to be composed. He would pull out that program for ages afterward, shove it gleefully in front of me, point to each part of the pages that had my name on them and say, "Who's that?" And I'd have to say, "Me." And then he'd chortle and hug me like a maniac each time I said it. After the ceremony, we all poured out triumphantly onto the steps of the church for our photo op, smiling, feeling relieved as parents snapped pictures. I got a lot of good-natured ribbing from my friends because they had no idea that I'd win all those awards, and man, neither did I. Our party in the gym was so much fun after. We all danced and the teachers danced too. It was the best time, and I remember feeling this momentum. Like it was full speed ahead now to high school. We'd made it. We'd graduated. The whole night had felt like magic. I was 14, smart and happy, and it felt like my future was nothing but bright and filled with endless, amazing, beautiful possibilities.